So, another episode, guys. And this April, I'm starting a new series on women and women in leadership. And my first guest is someone I was really, really looking forward to meeting. And the thing is, I actually came across her through LinkedIn. So I saw some of her posts, her inspirational posts, and I said, I'll definitely have to reach out to this lady, and I hope she could be my guest on the show. And guess what? It was so easy. Like, I reached out, we had a conversation, and immediately she said, I'm interested and we can do this. So my guest today is Rebecca. I would let her introduce herself at some point. But please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this conversation. This conversation is really, really important to me, actually. And I'd love to you guys to actually let me know what you think, because I'll be sharing the journeys of a number of women in different spheres of life. They'll be talking about their journeys to leadership, because it's not been easy. I've shared on my previous episodes about my journey to leadership, and so these women have inspired me or are inspiring me, and that's why I have Rebecca here today, and I'm hoping her journey and her story will inspire you. So Rebecca, welcome to the show. Thank you. I'm really, really humbled and I'm honored that you agreed to be part of the show. And the thing is, we actually know each other. But before I talk about that, maybe just introduce yourself, who you are, your name, obviously, who you are, what you do for our listeners.
Thank you so much, Rahel. I'm super excited to be here, and thank you so much for having me here during this series about women. I think it's so important to have women and to be able to see women who are in places that you aspire to be in. So I'm super excited to have this conversation. So I am a leadership mentor, and I help Black women professionals specifically step into the next level of leadership by owning their voice and creating an impactful personal brand that speaks, I'm the leader, in a way that positions themselves, but in a way that also helps them have that confidence to be able to speak out, to speak their voice, speak their truth, and really claim that position in that proverbial seat at the table.
Oh wow, that is so interesting. I did not even know that. I thought you're just a mentor, you're a coach, leadership coach, but this is quite interesting. And you've said something that I'm gonna ask you at some point, but then you're also a mom, you're a wife, you're a friend, you're a sister, you're a daughter. So anything you want to share with us on those particular responsibilities that you have, especially being a mom, because I know most women are excited about being moms, but any that you feel you want to talk about or you want to share, what is something that you can share with us today about any of those responsibilities?
Yeah, so I have been in my career for 10 years, but 5 of those have been when I was a mom. So my firstborn is now 5, and then I have 2 girls, twins, who are 2 years old. And I think it's important also for us to acknowledge the challenges that come with being a mom, being in a career, running a business for some of the women like me. But at the same time, it's important to also acknowledge that it is possible. It's just a matter of, first of all, being really good with managing your time and protecting your time, giving yourself grace, but then also knowing that there are different seasons in your life. So when my kids were very young, like the first 1 to 1.5 years, I really focused, my priority was solely on taking care of them. Every spare minute I had, it was solely to them. And as they grew older, I've then been able to sort of, refocus on other areas of my life. So for me, just being very cognizant of what season you are in as a mom is important, because you really can't do it all. We only have 24 hours in a day, and there's only so much time management techniques you can adopt. So for me, just knowing what season you are in and maximizing on that and being very protective of your time and aligning your time to that season is really what's going to take you to the next level.
Wow, she's already advising all the moms out there how to juggle your time, being a mom, being a career leader, being a coach, being all these things that she is. So thank you for sharing that. And I mean, the way you're talking about it, feels like you're so passionate about being a mom. You really enjoy it. So maybe tell us, what do you spend doing with your children? Like, what's a fun activity that you do with your kids that you really look forward to? Yeah, that is really, really exciting. What do you do?
It's actually quite interesting,
Yeah.
because maybe it doesn't sound as exciting, but I try and make sure I am there with them during bath time. So in the evenings, I set aside at least 1 hour, so 7 to 8. Everyone knows, even at work, that like I don't take calls during that time.
Wow.
Because during that time I'm either like helping, bath them, putting them to sleep, reading them their bedtime stories, or doing homework with my 5-year-old son now.
Oh, wow.
So it's not really exciting stuff, but I think just being present really helps the kids know that we support them, we love them, and they kind of feel our presence, and they don't feel like, they're sharing us with our cell phones or with other things that we're doing. So I just try and be present and use the time that I have to do whatever needs to be done during that time.
And that's very important. And I love that you say that being present, that is something that is not common in a lot of households, being present. And the fact that you are as busy as you are and you're doing all these things, but then this one thing is really important, and you make it as important as it is, as the way you're explaining it. That's really, really something that obviously I'm aspiring to when I become a mom. So thank you for sharing that as well. So when I grow up, I hope I'll be like that. But family is very, very important. So so obviously with what you've shared about being a career leader, being a professional coach, you came from somewhere, you have a story to share. So maybe you can start us off from how you started your career. You can even share the detail of where you started your career if you're comfortable sharing, and how it started from whatever time it started to now, and the lessons that you have learned from the time you started your career till now, both good and bad, because every story has a good and a bad. So obviously let's start with the good so that we have a bit of inspiration, but obviously the bad will also motivate us to learn several things about how to navigate through professional life, through certain environments, especially the corporate world, because the corporate world can be quite murky. And I mean, I've shared my story about my corporate life and my professional life in the corporate world. So maybe just start us off from where you started your career. Is this something that you actually dreamt about? Is this what you dreamt about when you were growing up? You said, I want to be a professional coach, I want to be a consultant. Is this something that you dreamt about?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I don't know if you ever have that clarity on what you want to do when you are young. Maybe if you have like the right mentorship at a young age. But for me, I kind of got into the profession I am in now, in actuarial science, really because my teachers saw that I was good at maths.
Oh, wow.
And they identified and said, okay, given that either accounting or actuarial science would be good for you. And when I Googled what the two entailed and what the salaries looked like, the actuary looked more sort of attractive. So
wait, so you're saying, okay, I'm sorry for asking this. So you're saying you did actuarial science because of, obviously because you're good at math, but then because of the salary part, that was the second motivator, yeah?
Yeah. And I think it's also not, I think we need to stop shaming people for using income as sort of a motivator for the profession they want to go for, because it's important, because money gives you certain things that you can't get if you don't have it, right? There's certain things, experiences you can experience, and happiness you can get from being able to afford certain things. So for me, that was really important. But another aspect was the challenge, because I had read about how challenging it was, how few actuaries there were, and it kind of felt like this elite profession. So I thought, okay, let me go for it. It was tough. So it was really, really tough. We actually started as a class of 300, and in our graduation year, we were 35.
Wow.
So like literally 10% of the class graduated.
Like it was that hard.
Yeah, it was that hard. It was so hard. So many times I was like, is this really what I wanted to do? But I knew I couldn't quit.
Do any other.
I was on a scholarship. My parents would, they wouldn't exactly afford the tuition that I was being paid for. So I knew I had to follow through and I had to get this done.
So let me ask about your parents, because you mentioned your parents. When you said you wanted to do actuarial science, the African society, and I've talked about it before with my other guests. Did your dad or your mom tell you, okay, I love it that you want to do this actuarial science, and maybe it was the buzzword at that particular point, or the buzz career, or the buzz course, I don't know what to call it. But did your parents also tell you to think about the common courses that were out there? So engineering, medicine, what was the other one? Lawyer. So it was either engineering, being a doctor, or being a lawyer. Did your parents ever push you to that direction? Or when you went to them and told them actuarial science, they were like, okay, we're good with this, let's go with this?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if they were a bit progressive, but my dad was very supportive.
Okay.
And I guess he also gave me that independence because maybe he knew I would make the right decision based on what I was good at.
Yeah.
So I didn't really feel like I was being pushed to a certain direction. I don't even remember us having the discussion of whether I want to be a doctor or a lawyer, the typical professions that African parents want their kids to have. So I guess I was fortunate in that way. But I also had the scholarship opportunities. So that also opened a lot of doors for me and lifted off the pressure from my parents.
Nice. So actuarial science, you finish, part of the 35. Congratulations. Thank you. What happens after that? Do you get a good job? Because obviously when you leave campus, your parents again have an expectation that you're going to get this white collar job that is going to be amazing, that is going to give you the money that you deserve. But what happened after that, like after you left school?
Yeah, so after I left school, I was fortunate to get a job even before I had finished my last year. So by the time I was graduating, a month later, I was already in my first job.
Oh, nice.
But, as I was sharing earlier with you, the profession I'm in is quite heavily male-dominated. And so the organization I went into, it was an audit firm, one of the big four, in actuarial consulting. I was actually the only Black woman in the team.
Oh, wow.
And I hadn't anticipated this. And I kind of feel like no one ever gives you a rule book, the rules of the corporate game.
Yeah.
And so I had to, wallow myself and figure out how to handle, being the only one and kind of being a misfit really in this team. Because come lunches, people would talk about their travels, I only went to the village, right, to visit my grandparents. Or they would talk about these fancy restaurants and cuisines that they enjoyed.
Wait, and this is their first job?
Yeah, this is their first job.
Wow.
I mean, they came from really elite families, of course.
Yeah.
Given actuarial science is an expensive degree to study.
Yeah.
So, it made sense that the families they came from were quite well-to-do. So it was quite interesting, that dynamic, and it obviously affected my professional career because I couldn't relate with my leaders in a way that my peers could. And there were of course biases as well that I had to face that were flung at me continuously about Black women, if you can't speak properly or if you say the wrong English word in a meeting, you're kind of like marked as, okay, she's not ready to talk in meetings, and I had to go through all these sort of growth pains. And it was kind of hard because I had to go through them alone. There were no other Black women in leadership in that organization at the time. So there was no one I could go to and ask, how did you handle this when you went through this? And I was fortunate enough to have other mentors in my life, not necessarily in my line of career. My husband at the time we were dating, he had kind of gone through the same experience in London, in a different country, but he had gone through the same experience. And I leaned on to those people. And I think that's really what sort of motivated me to coach other women, because I know that this is something that I lacked, and I know that a lot of other Black women lacked. That space, that voice to speak out, to be themselves, you know, to not be afraid of speaking in a meeting, and to not be afraid of saying the wrong English word, or saying it in a sort of wrong accent. I mean, it's not even wrong. I shouldn't be saying wrong, but I guess in the eyes of other people.
It is. Yeah. So let me just take a pause there, because what you're saying is actually really profound. And I feel like it's also my story. But let me first ask, in this organization, was it, you said it was male dominated, but was it Caucasians, or it's just Black, so it was a mix of both?
Yeah, so I was the only Black woman in the team. So it was pretty much the whole team was white Caucasians. And even in the organization at large, at the time, they were trying to increase their, you know, Black statistics. But it was also challenging because, you know, there's only a limited number of Black graduates. And so now it's much better in terms of the distribution and the diversity. But at that time, 10 years ago, conversations around diversity was kind of even a misnomer. It was hard to bring up such topics. And sometimes I also felt like I was that trophy, you know, the trophy Black girl in the team, right? That I would be put in magazines just to show that, you know, they had the statistics to show that they were hiring and doing their part in diversity. So there were all sorts of challenges that I had to go through, and I didn't really have a rule book the way you would have, you know, your study books in university to tell you what to do when you have this problem. And so that's really what inspired me to go on this path and to mentor other women.
Wow, that is, oh my goodness! Like, she's sharing, and I'm like, wow, this. Okay, no, it might not be exactly what I went through, but it is similar, because I remember when I joined my first proper job, like my first proper professional job, it was with an international organization. And I remember, like, when I used to go for meetings, I used to be told, like, either you're not speaking properly or you're not speaking to the level that these people want you to speak at. So I had not a supportive boss at that time, and she was a woman, which is quite unfortunate, because I went through hell with her, and I've talked about this before. She was not supportive. She would actually call me to her office, and she would tell me to tell her exactly what I would say in a meeting. How would you even know what to say exactly in a meeting? So obviously from that particular point, I was intimidated. So if I go to that meeting, I had, like, in my mind, I'm thinking about the words, but then they're not coming out the way I'd want them to come out, because I was scared. I was scared because my boss was looking at me, because this client had an expectation that I'm going to deliver whatever I'm going to deliver with such high expectation. So it was really a lot of stress. So I never, like, my first years in that particular organization was really, really stressful for me. So what you're talking about, I can only imagine, because for you, the dynamic was even different, and there was a lot of things going on. So being Black, being the only woman, and then you don't have anyone to sort of navigate you or to help you navigate through this. And maybe let me ask, your mom, I'm not sure if she went through a similar thing, but did you ever go to her and tell her, I'm going through this and this, can you help me, can you give me advice and all that? Did she ever tell you anything about it? And if she did, what was that?
So my mom was a doctor. She passed away when I was young.
Sorry about that.
So I guess we didn't get to that point where she could tell me about the journey and what she went through. But in her organization where she worked at the hospital, there were a lot of Black people by then, because they had this program in Cuba where they were taking a lot of students to study. So by the time she was, you know, working in South Africa, there were a lot of other Black women and peers
in such positions.
So I guess the dynamic was different in the sense that her profession already had some level of diversity, whereas mine, even up to this date, is still predominantly white male.
Wow. Wow. This is really interesting. So you're in this organization, you're going through all this, so you reach out to your mentors. So take us through what you went through after that, the journey after that, and
Yeah, so I think I also had to take a look in the mirror because obviously as a Black woman, there are a lot of cultural, how should I say this? There are a lot of cultural norms you grow up with that actually work against you when you are in the corporate setting.
Yeah.
You know, like do not speak back to your elders, do not talk when your elders are talking.
Yeah.
And all those things actually work against you when you are in a corporate setting because you are actually expected to challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
You are expected to raise your voice. You are expected to speak very confidently, even when your boss and your boss's boss and the whole line of reporting is in the room. And so I had to take a look in the mirror and I started small, right? Yeah. So in meetings, I would make sure I say at least one thing. I would prepare the heck out of meetings before. Now it comes much more naturally. But I realized that I had a lot of work to do in comparison to my white peers who grew up in settings where it was okay to speak back to your parent. It was okay to challenge them and to say, no, I don't agree. And I think that's also another area that as Black women we kind of need to I don't know if it's accepting, but we need to also look at ourselves and see whether the way we are positioning ourselves is in a way that gives us that credibility as leaders, is in a way that actually puts us out there in comparison to our peers who might naturally have that confidence and that presence of a leader.
Wow, and that is very true. What you're talking about is very true. And I've seen a lot of women not getting to the level that they need to get at because these cultural things that have been obviously ingrained in most of us, it's stopping most of the women that I know to get to that level. And you've said something very, very profound as well about, being marked or being labeled as aggressive, boisterous. Like when you speak up during a meeting, why is she speaking up? Why is she saying this? Women are not meant to speak in certain places. Women are just meant to be, is it not speak and be heard or be heard and not speak? Whichever, yes.
Be seen and not heard.
Be seen, yes, be seen and not heard. And I've gone through that as well. So I'm glad you're sharing that because I've been labeled as aggressive. I've been labeled as boisterous. I've been labeled all these things by men who are leaders in the organizations that I've worked for, men who are my bosses, men who are my managers. Like at one point I was being told, Rahel, when you get into a meeting, just keep quiet. And I'm like, I cannot keep quiet if something is disturbing me. So why are you telling me to keep quiet? That means you do not want or you are not comfortable with my contribution, which is a problem. So what you're saying about women getting out of that norm, getting out of that labeling, the cultural dynamic that we've been taught as African women, as Black women. Because when a Black woman speaks out loud, or when they speak their mind and they speak it with such confidence, they will be labeled as something.
Angry.
Yes, angry.
Yeah.
You've heard
aggressive.
You've heard of the angry Black woman. And we try so hard not to be the angry Black woman, whether it's at work, whether it's in relationships. So you're just there, submissive. I really don't know if we're gonna get over that, but I'm glad that you are doing it and I am doing it, and I'm hoping that other women can actually get out of that and do it. Because let me tell you, and I shared it as well, people are gonna hate you. Men are gonna hate you. Other women are gonna hate you because they'll be like, why is this person being like this? They just need to be like me because I'm quiet, I'm chilled, and all these opportunities will come to them. But I do not believe in being quiet. I do not believe in just being subdued to a level where you cannot speak your mind just because you are a woman and just because someone has told you to do it.
And it's interesting because if the same thing is said or the same comment is said by a white woman, it's accepted, right? And I noticed that a lot in my career, how my peers and some of my friends that I made who were white or Asian would say the same comment or would make the same gestures in meetings and it would be accepted. But as a Black woman, there was always this bias even before you speak, that was like, okay, she doesn't have much to say, or whatever she's saying is not important. And then the same comment would be made by like a man or someone else, and it would be accepted, right? And I think those are some of the items that we really need to raise, especially if you're in an organization that is pro diversity and inclusion. Now we are fortunate to have those avenues where we can speak and be open about some of these aggressions that we go through. And sometimes it's unconscious biases. Sometimes people don't even realize that they're projecting these biases onto you. But when you give that feedback, maybe in an anonymous space, if you do have that avenue or channel in your organization, it's really going to help people to be more aware of these issues.
And I'm hoping that actually women who are listening, this is something that you can actually do. And if you're scared of doing it openly, do it anonymously. And I'm hoping that you get the support that you require, because Rebecca, let me tell you, I'm all about women winning. And the thing is, for me, women winning is not about having a leadership position or sitting at the helm of an organization. Women winning to me means like you're actually fulfilling your purpose here on earth, and you feel it like when you go home at the end of the day, you actually feel like I did something to change the life of someone, because you should be all about other people, not just about yourself. So for me, women winning is just, you are in your space, the space that God created you to be. That for me is winning. And that's why even when I'm doing this series about women and women in leadership, for me, leadership is not about a title. Rebecca did not say she's the CEO of an organization or anything of that sort, but she is a leader in her own right, because whatever she's doing is leading people. It's taking someone from one capacity to the other and making them a better person. That is being a leader. Yeah. So maybe let's go back to your story. So you're in this organization, you get what from your mentors, or you get a bit of inspiration from your mentors. So how do you navigate through it, and how do you get out of this organization and go to a different one, or it's the same organization that you've been in? And how did you get to this level now of consulting and now being comfortable in the space that you're in?
Yeah, so I contemplated leaving a few times, but I realized, and also with the help of my mentors, that I was going to find the same challenges elsewhere.
Exactly.
So I needed to overcome these challenges in the space that I was in. And I gave myself that challenge to start speaking out, to, if preparation needs to be done ahead of a client meeting, I would over prepare, right? Instead of putting an hour, I would put in 2, so that I also had the expertise behind me, because it is important to know your stuff, right? And to not just speak, how you've heard the phrase, oh, she speaks so much, but there's no substance in what she's saying. So for me, that was the challenge I gave myself. And I also made sure I qualified by passing my professional papers as fast as my peers. I guess that was more for validation. It was probably not necessary, but I felt I needed to validate myself and establish myself as not just the black girl kind of trophy hire, but that I actually had something to offer on the table. And I also started to identify people who were more supportive towards me. And I believe that success cannot happen in a vacuum.
Exactly.
So I would look for people who would maybe just give a compliment or say something more than others would say. And I would try to work more with those people, because that's where I grew, because they also gave me more opportunities and more of, the exciting job opportunities that my other peers were getting. And then I would also try and solicit feedback, even if it was, unsolicited feedback. I would ask for it, even outside of a performance review cycle. And I think a combination of all these things, and also being very aware, even something as simple as speaking louder. So one of my leaders said, I don't speak loud enough. Like in a meeting, no one can hear me well. So I would be very conscious and aware, like right now, that I am projecting my voice and not speaking at a low tone, which could suggest that I'm not confident about what I'm saying. So sometimes it's even the small things that you don't realize, but when you get that feedback and when you take it with positivity
exactly.
Can make a big difference.
Exactly.
So those are the things that I did, and slowly I started to get out of my shell. I started to be unafraid, even when negative sort of biases or sort of negative perceptions were thrown at me. I was so much more able to handle them. I kind of grew a thicker skin, but I had to get out of that shell. I had to step out. I had to start speaking my truth, my voice, my opinions, without the fear of what if people think this is stupid, or what if people don't even listen to me. And it takes that practice continuously. And the more you do it, the more confident. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. The more you do it, the more confident you become. The more you do it, the more opportunities you get to speak out even more, to stand out even more, and the more your confidence builds. And that's really how I got into where I am now, leading a team of 11 really super intelligent actuaries. And well on the path to the directorship in my organization. But it didn't just happen. I think another misconception is people will see your LinkedIn profile. They'll just see the cover page of your life, but they don't realize the work that has gone into getting to, like where you are now consulting to big companies. They don't see the work and the challenges you faced. And sometimes you have to go through those challenges. You have to go through that failure in order to get to where you are now. So I would definitely highly encourage all the women to take those opportunities, put themselves out there, raise your hand when there are opportunities to stand out and speak out, because it's only what people see that you can be recognized for, right? If you are just keeping quiet and you're saying my work will speak for itself, other people will even take credit for your work. I've had those experiences where other people completely take credit for the work I've done because I'm just there in the background not saying anything.
Wow. Wow. Like, I'll not even ask you, like, what is your parting shot? Because this is really, really profound. And let me ask, just before we close this conversation, have you had support from other women? And if you've not had support, like, what have you been doing about it? And if you've had support, what did these women teach you, or what did they instill in you to make you feel like I can actually go on and my journey is worth it? Because you said something very profound. There's nothing good that comes easy. I'm paraphrasing, but there's nothing good that comes easy. So you have to go through the journey of growing pains for you to get to where you are. And honestly, I believe that if it's very tough, then I think your journey is actually going to be greater. So if you're going through a tough journey right now, honestly, if you take it with so much positivity, it's going to get you to that next level. So maybe tell us about the women, if they've been supportive, if not, like, how have you navigated through that and all of that?
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because I also had a woman boss in my first job. And she was quite cutthroat. She was very direct, straight to the point, aggressive. But she actually gave good feedback points. There were some that I didn't agree to, but there were some that have made me who I am today. There were some that have really given me that thick skin that I needed to get. And for me, the other sort of inspiration or driving force behind wanting to support women is, I don't know what happens, but I think once women get to a certain level in their career, they kind of want to take on that role of a man, become aggressive, I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one who's experienced this, but it's been hard to extract mentorship from women personally. And I've just extracted mentorship from a lot of male colleagues who've actually been very supportive. My current leader has been so supportive in my journey. And so if you can't identify women who can support you, identify men who can support you, because they've probably interacted with other women in leadership and they can give you some pointers. But definitely, like, speak to Rahel, speak to me on LinkedIn if this is support you need. Because I do recognize that it is challenging to have women who can give you that positive reinforcement, that support, and who can also share with you the realities of their journey and what they went through, and not just the cream of the cake, the icing on the cake. So that's been my experience. I don't know, maybe
what my experience has been. So as I mentioned, so I had a woman boss. My first proper job, professional job, I had a woman boss, and she really, I went through hell. I will not lie to you. I remember I cried. I mean, I know I look strong and everything, but I cried. I used to cry a lot. And the unfortunate thing is it compromised my health at one point, because I thought I was coping, and I thought, I'm strong and all that. And I thought I was coping, but I was not coping. So it ended up affecting my physical health and my mental health. But then for the physical health, it affected my heart. So I actually talk about that in one of the posts that I've done. And that's unfortunate that it came to that, because for me, I'm always passionate about everything that I do. I never do things half and half. So everything that I do it with a lot of passion, with a lot of energy. And then you have this woman boss here who feels like you're not giving enough, you're not doing the best that you can, dictating what you need to say in meetings, and not supporting you in the right way. I mean, she helped me in some ways, and I think I'm speaking like this because she really pushed me so hard, because she's telling me there's certain things that I say that are not coming out as articulate as they need to come out. So she helped me. I went through hell, but she helped me, because first of all, I said, this is a boss that I'd never want to become a boss like this. That's number one. And then the other thing is just collaborating with your teammates and, pulling them to, like you're just pulling someone. If they are weak in one thing, you try and teach them, because one thing that I believe is you can never be perfect. You can never have everything. Like, there's one thing that you're not good at, and there are other things that you're really good at. And this one thing that you're not good at, someone is going to help you in that. So you can learn from people. So I believe if someone in your team is not doing what they need to do, or they are slacking in one area, you can actually pull them up. And you pull them up in the right way, because you can actually push someone down to a place where they lack self-esteem, where they feel like they do not believe in themselves, and they will not obviously perform to the level that you want them to perform. So I feel like, or I rather believe that if you just mold someone and mentor someone, because you are a mentor, you are a coach, and if you see this weak spot or this weakness, you can actually point it out to them in the right way, and then hopefully mold them up, and hopefully they'll be open to learn, because not everyone is open to learn, because people sometimes become defensive when you tell them about their weaknesses. And I've had that as well. So I believe that as women bosses, even as women to women, we need to support each other, because we are going through a lot in this corporate world, in our personal lives, being moms and wives and all that. We juggle quite a lot. So imagine if you have other women putting you down because of certain aspects, whether it's at work, whether it's as you're driving anywhere. It makes it a little bit harder. So let's support each other, and hopefully because people are saying the future is female. I don't know if the future is female. I think it's for everyone. It's not just female. Let's come together. Let's build a world that is inclusive for everyone, and our lives will just will be better. So as we come to an end, maybe let me ask you. You obviously go home to your husband and your children. What does your husband appreciate about you and the things that you are doing? Maybe 3 things that he appreciates, whether it's on the personal side or on the career side, because I'm sure there's some attributes that he saw and he's seeing that he really talks about and he appreciates it. What are those 3 things? Just 3 things.
Wow, that's a good question. So I was actually having a call with a client recently, and after the call he was like, wow, you're really good at relationship building, and I didn't think that, but he thinks I'm really good at building relationships one-on-one, which I guess is also a characteristic of introverts like me. My attention to detail, sometimes it can be a devil. But sometimes it's needed. There have been a couple of times where he didn't know the flight was in the morning, and he had planned to go to the airport in the evening. And thanks to my attention to detail, I saved the day. Lastly, I guess it's just being able to be there for the kids.
Okay.
So like one of the things I do is every single day I drop my son at school.
Oh, wow.
So irrespective of whether there's a meeting, whatever is happening at work, I try and be there for the kids as much as I can. And I think it's so important to have that supportive partner when you are raising kids, because it's important for your kids to have that support from the parents, and to know that and to not grow up thinking the house help is the mother or something like that. So I guess those are the three.
Oh, nice. And thanks to your husband for seeing all this. And I mean, with women and juggling all these things as well, when you have a supportive partner, as you say, and they keep reaffirming you and validating and all these things that they do to just make you do what you're doing and continue doing what you're doing is really, really important. So thank you to Rebecca's husband. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'm sure that's why you are the way you are right now. Obviously, he's supporting that. So thank you so much. So thank you so much, Rebecca. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm so glad there's so many similarities between us, and I'm so glad that you can actually put yourself out there and actually share your story with us and with everyone. And you do that on LinkedIn. So maybe if you don't mind, you can share how people can contact you in case they need to be coached, because you coach, you're a leadership coach, or just anything. Like if someone just wants to reach out to you to say thank you for sharing your story, how can they reach you?
Good. So I will share with you a link. I do have a gift for all your watchers. It is a design to lead roadmap. So it will basically give you the steps to building a personal brand that you can use, or not use, but building your brand to leadership. So I'll share that with you, and you can drop it in the show notes. But if you want to reach out, I am on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of my time on social, at Rebecca Muriuki.
Nice. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Like, I'm really, really humbled. So let me tell you, when I get guests onto my show, sometimes it's not easy getting people to come and talk about their stories, but the grace that you have given me and the grace that you've shown and you sharing your story, it means so much to me. And I'm hoping that your story will inspire, even if it's just one person. For me, let me tell you, I don't do this for millions of people. I just do it for one person. So I'm hoping that your story will inspire one person. And if you are that one person, please let us know. You can reach out to Rebecca and just say thank you for sharing her story. And I'm looking forward to having even more and more guests come onto the show. Thank you, Rebecca.